Hey y'all, so this is War 4, we're up against H8FL8. This is an alliance that we've heard doesn't take war quite as seriously, tends to focus on AQ, but that shouldn't come into play at all because we want the most attack bonus we can possibly get. So, as usual, the plan is for no one to die. So I'm taking a pretty short war myself, and that's because I actually needed to bring in Kingpin for the first time ever. We have a Knull boss, and we had not seen that before. We discussed several options, but I know that KT1, MU8, and BMcG have all taken Knull bosses with Kingpin under various circumstances and felt great about the solo. So we were pretty comfortable with that. And this Path 9 just lined up perfectly for him. There are a few matchups for which Kingpin is not ideal on Path 9, but luckily we didn't see any of them. So then it was just a matter of, okay, let me take literally anything in Section 2 and I'm good for the boss, because the rest of the team was good elsewhere. And man, does that L2 hit hard with 2 overpower up. That was definitely fun. Moving on to Wasp, she is high ground, so that could add up over time, but Kingpin is beefy enough that the plan here is just to beta heavy, maybe 2, push her to her special 1, and just close it out. Really, the only thing we don't want to do is end up blocking a special 2 with multiple charges of high ground or something, but I don't really think that's likely. Additionally, we can hit into her block if we need to, because even if her evade charges down, all she's going to do is inflict a shock on us, which Kingpin should purify anyway. And even if he doesn't, because you'll notice that there are some times where we're getting both a rage debuff and the incinerate from the node, that's okay, because even when Kingpin fails to purify, which is just a quirk of how they're applied, because the hood synergy is giving him a 100% chance to purify. Even when he fails that, when he gets back around to 8 total debuffs, everything is gone anyway. You don't have to worry about it. So this Mr. Negative, I haven't fought him all that much. I think the last time I fought him was with Massacre, who's just a really hard counter with that 12-second Incinerate. And so I dueled a fair bit for this one to make sure I got the special timing down. And I basically just came back to, alright, don't go too early, don't go too early. It's later than you think. I think we're coming up here on the first time he actually throws a special. Yeah, there it is. And I went too early. So I don't know, I've got nothing for that. But that's exactly why I threw on an indestructible boost for all 3 fights. So that part is solved. And after that, even though the incinerates are ticking for a good amount thanks to that fury he has, it doesn't matter. By the time we use Kingpin again, we'll just heal him up. He demolished all of those fights, as he tends to do. So then we have Professor X over here on Buffet. So when I saw this, I figured this probably was a Warlock trap. Because for those of you who don't know, when Warlock heal blocks somebody and then that causes the degen from his Sig ability, that will feed high ground and cause it to stack twice as fast. Which is, of course, one of the weird benefits this season of having an unduped Warlock. So in my planning sheet, I actually have marked which out of our roster, which Warlocks are duped and which are not out of the rank 3s to avoid exactly that. So mine was safe to send over here, and so this was my only tier 2 fight, because I think I was the only unduped Warlock available, and it was just by far the safest fight for this. Because then you see how much damage that does with the class advantage and the armor breaks. Yeah, this is a nice hard counter. I could have thrown on power back boosts, and then I probably could have chained those, because that one special 2 did so much damage. But even taking some excess high ground, we're still well over 90%, so I just figured this was not a problem. I think this is where I mess up a couple of parries in a row and take some extra. Yeah, there we go. Suddenly we're at 90%. But that's really okay. He's at 12%. This is not a problem. Additionally, we don't really have to worry about his channeling charges because they just keep going down when he's getting power drained. So no problem at all. So that means the only fight left is the boss. We were discussing this in our planning and going back and forth over whether we should leave the hazard shift node up or not. Several of the examples I looked at did, and several did not. So it didn't really seem to have a big effect on how the fight went. It looks like if you leave hazard shift up, then via that same interaction we saw from lane 9, where sometimes enough debuffs are applied that some stick, you take more damage, but then you also cycle through overpower more quickly and you do more damage. And so therefore you end up taking less damage from like blocks and that kind of thing. As near I can tell, they come out pretty identically in terms of how safe the fight is. It's just a matter of speed. And it actually worked out better for our planning for Campo to take the hazard shift fight down the night before. That was just going to be safer from a coordination standpoint. So we were fine with this boss fight just taking a little bit longer, knew it should be safe. So like I mentioned, I had those 3 models for this fight, all of which I will link in the description. But I had also done my own duels with my rank 1 level 1 5-star against a 455 6-star Knull, which is about a 10 to 1 PI disadvantage. And I had about a 50-50 rate on whether I would solo it or just barely not solo it. And I knew going into this, I was at just a little bit worse than a 4 to 1 PI difference. So I was not worried even in the slightest. Plus, I have the invulnerability boost here, and I have the hood synergy, meaning that fewer armor breaks and other kinds of problematic things are going to stick on me, whereas in duels you obviously don't have the synergy, and so more of those armor breaks were sticking, meaning I was taking more damage into block. So yeah, an absurdly safe fight. You'll notice there that I'm blocking that hit of the special 2 where he lunges, and that's just because if you are going to mess up the evade, that's where, and then you can take all of the hits after that and you can burn your entire invulnerability boost in one go. Whereas if you just block that, which you have the health to do, then you can just safely dex out of the rest of that and take minimal damage. So here we go again, block, and then I dex the rest. Really easy. So a few times here he has thrown the special 1. We're trying to push to the special 2. See how I'm shortening my combo and blocking there, which is why he's hitting into me and heavying instead most of the time. And that's because if he never throws the special 1, then he'll never reverse your controls. But we're also being a little bit conservative with our special attacks to make sure that if he does throw that special 1, that we have a special available to throw during the encroaching corruption timer, just like with encroaching stun, to make sure that that never triggers. Then we don't have to worry about reverse controls, we don't have to worry about him going unblockable and unstoppable. And this is basically just a beefy boss fight where we're baiting heavies. And we can afford to, because we're healing the whole time. We're turning all of his armor breaks and those annoying Living Abyss debuffs into rage debuffs that are just making us hit harder and gain more power. It's super easy. Funnily enough, a lot of the other options for dealing with the reverse controls directly run into the problem where when Knull triggers corruption and then stacks those armor breaks on you, it lowers your combat power rate, which makes it harder for those champions to close out the fight with specials. Kingpin avoids the combat power rate debuff from those armor breaks, but then, like I mentioned, actually gains extra combat power from having debuffs on him. So there's so many things about Knull's kit that hurt other champions that Kingpin turns into a strength, and that's why, despite the fact that I'm always a little bit nervous when I bring a champion into war for the first time, especially as has now happened 3 times in about 10 wars, if I am bringing that champion in for the first time to take a boss, This one still felt better than a lot of the others that I've done that for because it was just such a hard counter. Kingpin is amazing. I am extremely glad I ranked 3'd him, and I'm extremely glad that I was able to rank up other defenders so that I had mine available for offense, because this just lined up beautifully. Only 5 fights this war, but, you know, that includes a boss solo that was just perfect. Not my play, but the matchup, and that's all I can ask for. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and if you want to catch more, remember to like and subscribe, and I will catch y'all next time. Take care.